How does a FERS pension change the retirement math for federal employees? Look, we've talked a lot about this concept in the past, directly and indirectly building out case studies, taking a look at retirement income worksheets. I think it's worth a refresh, especially in light of everything that's happening, changing within federal service today. And we're going to do a couple of things in the video here today. First of all, we're going to take a look at equating the pension to portfolio dollars, see what those numbers look like. We're also going to equate it to annuity dollars, because after all, your pension is a guaranteed income source. It's named the FERS basic annuity. So this is also an apt comparison point. Second part of the video, we're going to take a look at the equation, how that math changes for someone retiring with a pension versus someone that does not have that pension. See exactly how those resources change and how valuable your FERS basic annuity may be. And then as a bonus, we may just touch on the concept of how you should be investing if you have a pension. It's a popular topic of discussion out there, and I don't think that we always get that part right. And I'm not sure that that concept is being talked about in the right way. So let's go ahead and get into it. Look, guys, the FERS basic annuity is probably the most valuable benefit you have as federal employees. That's not a secret. It's one of the biggest reasons that federal employees actually stay within federal service, maybe longer than they'd actually like. And that's never been more true than it is today, especially in the light, like we were talking about all the changes within federal service. It's a bit of a golden handcuff because you've got these eligibility requirements. The benefit continues to increase, of course, with more years of service. So there's a lot of dynamics going on there. That's why it's so important to know exactly how it's calculated and what it's worth. All right, so let's take a look at equating your pension back to portfolio dollars. I know this is what everyone really came here for. Let's take a look at this calculation. In our video here today, we're going to use an example, and this example is going to run throughout both sections of the video. We're going to say we have a high-level federal employee, GS 14 or higher, making around $180,000 a year in salary. They're planning to work for 30 years and retire at their minimum retirement age of 57. So right off the bat, even before we get into talking through our calculation here, we can run what their pension is going to be worth. If we say that $180,000 salary is actually going to be their high 3 for simplicity, take that times their 30 years of service, we'll assign a standard 1% multiplier on that pension. I come up with $54,000 as the gross unreduced annuity amount. Now, in your circumstance, will there be reductions? Potentially, but for simplicity, of course, that's the number we're rolling with here in our example. So we've got a $54,000 FERS pension. It's a great pension, but of course, 30 years of service, high-level employee with a high salary. That's just the way it works out. Okay, now the simplest way to do the math here is to assign a percentage-based withdrawal rate, and then we can adjust back to portfolio dollars and figure out exactly what we need. So if we think about standard withdrawal rates, it's kind of a good starting point here. You hear a lot about 4% or 5% as being a standard withdrawal rate from a portfolio. And those are definitely good starting points, right? Now, I do want to be careful here because when you're looking at taking income from a portfolio over a 30-year plus time frame, it's not a set it and forget it exercise, right? There's a bit of an art to it. You got to monitor it. You got to make changes when necessary. So just assuming that 4% or 5% is the right number can be dangerous over the long term. It can work, but you need to monitor and review. In our example, we're going to use 5% as our number. So in order to get those portfolio dollars for a $54,000 pension, we can do it this way. We can either divide $54,000 by 5%, or we can multiply by the number 20. If we do that, we come up with $1,080,000. That's what your portfolio value would be needed to generate 5% pension dollars. And that would actually be an after-tax portfolio that we would need. So if we're talking pre-tax portfolio, you got to adjust that up. The number actually goes up to almost 1.25 million. It's a big portfolio, right? There's a lot of value here within the pension if that's kind of our comparison point. All right, so let's look at this from the standpoint of those annuity dollars. I'm not recommending that's what you should do with your money, but I think that's an interesting way to at least look at the numbers here. So we can do the same math, but what we need to figure out is a distribution rate on an annuity. These things vary a little bit based on your age, based on the insurer. We're going to use a 7.5% distribution rate. Okay, and for simplicity, $54,000 divided by 7.5% or times the number 13.3, I come up with $718,200. So $718,200, that's the number you would need to put into an immediate annuity to generate that $54,000 in annual income. Okay, so also a big chunk of change. So extremely valuable benefit. Keep in mind, federal employees do have skin in the game here, and this changed a little bit. Legacy employees, or those hired before 2013, contribute 0.8% to their pension. The agency makes up the rest to make your defined benefit formula work. Employees hired in 2013 contribute 3.1%. Those hired in 2014 to present day contribute 4.4%. So the math changes there a little bit based on how much you're contributing. Either way, it's still a really valuable benefit. Now, it has been talked about, will those numbers go up? Will new hires continue to face increased contribution amounts to their first pension? Maybe. That's going to change how attractive it is to actually be a federal employee, but we don't know where that goes at this point. All right, so some good numbers, right? I mean, you can pretty useful if you're thinking about how much you would actually need to replace. It's quite a bit, right? All right, second part of this, and I want to try to work through this as quickly as we can. It's really kind of building out a retirement income worksheet, but taking a look at that equation of what you would need if you're retiring with a pension versus retiring without a pension in terms of the other resources surrounding your situation to make your retirement income work. And this all starts with really figuring out how much you need. Right? So what will your expenses be within retirement? It's different. You can't just base it on what you're making today in terms of your income. We actually have to base it on what you think your spending is today and what you think your spending is going to be in the future, or what you want it to be in the future, right? If some things are going to change. Now, if you don't know these numbers, we talk about this all the time, you can back into them. Easy way to do that is to strip out what you're paying in taxes and what you're contributing to savings and investment accounts. Okay. If you take those numbers out, you get a pretty good idea of what you're spending, what your burn rate is, because everything else is kind of flowing out of the plan as an expense. Now, I would encourage you to get as granular as possible with your expenses if you have the time to do that, because a couple things are going to change, right? Some items are going to drop off as you get into retirement, and other items you're going to pick up. Travel and entertainment may surge those first couple of years. Maybe you'll pick up healthcare items later down the road. So it's a good idea to try to get a little more detailed with this if you can. And more information is always better. Once you have your number, it really turns into a bigger discussion about cash flow, which is simply income minus expenses. And of course, you got to be positive, or at least cash flow even on the big picture here in retirement. If you're not, then you just have choices to make. So in our example, our federal employees making $180,000 a year, we're going to say they have a 20% tax rate, fed, state, local. That might be a little bit low, but for simplicity, that's the number we're going to use here in our example. We're also going to say they're contributing 20% to saving and investing. Okay, so that takes 40% of that $180,000 out of the picture as taxes and savings and investment contributions. We know they're spending the other 60%. 60% times 180,000 gives me $108,000 a year. So that would be what their retirement expenses we could kind of base them on, right? And of course, you obviously want to get more granular, but that's what we're rolling with here to start. So if we pivot to income sources, for the federal employee, you're going to have your first pension. In this case, they're actually going to have a special retirement supplement. We're not going to include that in our calculation. And they're also going to have Social Security income. Those are the guaranteed income sources. For the non-federal employee, they're just going to have Social Security to fall back on as a guaranteed income source. The rest of the income is going to need to come from non-variable sources, or TSP, IRA, taxable investment account money, your portfolio dollars, or rental income, or if you're going to work. So those sources of variable income that are non-guaranteed. So in our example, we already laid this out. We know our federal employee has a pension, the gross unreduced amount, $54,000 a year. If we look at those expenses, $108,000, that's an after-tax number. So we need to adjust our income sources for taxes as well. If we say this federal employee, of course, like I mentioned, there's going to be reductions to think about in your own circumstance, but we're just going to take taxes off of in this particular example. $54,000 at a 20% tax rate comes out to be $43,200 a year. So that's your after-tax number for the pension. We could stack the special retirement supplement on top of that, of course, in a true retirement income worksheet. I'm not going to do that in the example here today, because ultimately we're trying to get to the comparison at age 62 when Social Security kicks in. And that special retirement supplement, of course, would run from 57 to 62 and then drop off. Okay. Second part of this, Social Security. So if you don't know your numbers, it's pretty easy to track down. Go to ssa.gov, set up your account, pull down your work history, and see exactly what your estimates will be. If you don't want to do that at this point, you're just looking for a quick number. They also have a calculator on there. You can put your salary when you're planning to retire, and it'll give you a pretty good estimate. For this example, we're going to use $30,000 a year as the annual benefit for Social Security. Now, that money is going to be taxable. 85% of that benefit in this circumstance is going to be taxable at the 20% tax rate. So that gives us an after-tax benefit of $24,900. Stack those two things on top of each other. I've got $58,100 in annual income after tax for the federal employee in this circumstance. For comparison, the retiree without the pension, they're just going to have the same $24,900 of Social Security income kicking in at age 62. So again, there's a huge advantage here, really between the ages of 57 to 62, giving you a lot more flexibility to retire earlier based on this pension, special retirement supplement, et cetera. All right, so we know there's going to be a gap here between that $108,000 that we need and the $58,000 and change for the retiree with the pension and Social Security, and then for the retiree without the pension, an even greater gap. But what I want to talk about here for a second is how much income are those guaranteed income sources actually replacing from your income need? All right, so if we look at this thing, just the pension alone, you've got $43,200. That's the after-tax amount. Divide that into $108,000. That's 40% of your retirement income need just made up from the pension benefit. If you stack Social Security on top of that, that's another 20 to 25%. So you're talking about more than 60% of your income need being made up by these two guaranteed income sources. They're actually guaranteed by the federal government. So that's a huge advantage. In contrast, the retiree without the pension, they're just replacing about 20 to 25% of their retirement income need from Social Security benefits. So a 40% swing there. Let's wrap this up and let's take a look at the gap that we have here. So we know our retiree with a pension, Social Security's got a gap of $49,900 a year. Okay, so they've got 58 grand of income coming from the pension and Social Security. So in order to replace that $49,900, we can do the same calculation that we did in our original step one, equating the pension to portfolio dollars. 49,900 divided by 5% or multiplied by 20 gives me $998,000. That's the portfolio value I would need to make up the shortfall here of around 50K. Okay, so about $1 million is what this federal employee would need. If they're looking at just buying an annuity, which again, we're not recommending that, just looking at the numbers here, they'd need about $663,670. Okay, so that's their gap if they're buying a single premium immediate annuity. Now, one other point here, we got to consider the taxability, the tax features, because when I'm running those numbers, that $998,000, that's actually after tax money that we would need. So if this is all pre-tax TSP, that number jumps up to almost $1.25 million. Okay, so an additional 250 grand or so in portfolio dollars, what you would need based on paying a 20% tax rate. And that's kind of what we're, the simple example, whether those tax rates are right or not, they're going to get us to a close estimate. So let's look at it from the retiree with no pension. They've got a gap of $83,100 a year. So that's a pretty big portfolio right off the bat. We know if you're taking a 5% withdrawal rate, that adjusts to $1,664,000. And if you're looking at the annuity value, it's a little over $1.1 million. So right off the bat, you can see in portfolio dollars, there's a $660,000 swing of what you would need if you didn't have the pension to replace that income. Now, again, on that $1.6 million number, that's if you have an after-tax portfolio. So if it's all pre-tax TSP, pre-tax IRA, that number actually jumps up to a little over $2 million. Actually, almost $2.1 million. $2,080,000 would be the portfolio value at a 5% distribution rate. So tax is very important consideration throughout retirement income planning. Don't overlook this. A lot of folks do, and then you end up coming up short. You need to take a higher withdrawal rate based on whatever your portfolio dollars are to account for the taxes you really need to pay. That's a lot of info. That's a lot of numbers. And I think we've gotten to a point of clarity here where really the biggest point you can drive home is the federal employee with a pension and Social Security benefits replacing more than 60% of their retirement income need from those two benefits, right? Versus someone that just has Social Security, you're looking at 20, 25% in this circumstance anyway. So that's a big gap to fill, and it equates to pretty large dollars. So you can look at this stuff and kind of make your evaluations on when you're planning to leave federal service. If you were thinking about pivoting to private industry, something like that, take this kind of stuff into account. The bonus section that I said we might touch on, we got maybe a minute to put some thoughts out there. So one thing that we hear a lot is if you have a pension, you can just invest aggressively or invest differently. Your pension should just change the game when it comes to how you invest your money. And that's not true. It all comes back to suitability. It comes back to your financial plan and what your financial plan is telling you your investment mix should be. It doesn't matter pension or no pension. It matters what your financial plan tells you based on how your retirement income worksheet is setting up, what your long-term goals are. I mean, if you have a very small need for income and you're in retirement, deep into retirement, thinking about it, maybe you could be a more aggressive investor, absolutely. But if that's not the case, if you still have a strong need for income and you have a pension coming in, then you need to consider what the right mix there is, and it's probably more balanced or conservative, right? So it's not just based on having a pension, it's based on your overall financial plan and what that looks like. I think that's an important point to drive home. All right, so a lot of information in the video here today. I hope you found it valuable. If you have, please give us a like and a subscribe. If you're working on something, if you'd love to look at your retirement numbers, we'd love to hear from you. So send us a message. This is what we do on a day-to-day basis. So send us a note, love to hear from you, and we'll see you next time.